Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Welcome back to another episode of Love and Abuse. Just want to let you know that all information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being. So there's a subtle manipulation that can often go under the radar. It can be injected into a conversation to make someone feel guilt and shame. And it's very well concealed. It's very well hidden behind the mask or veil of compliments. And this is something you may or may not know about. It took me a while to figure out what was going on in this manipulation. It is emotionally abusive, but it's so devious. It's so crafty. And I did this. I did this when I was younger, I'll admit it. And maybe you did too. Maybe someone you know is doing this to you now. But it's important to understand what this is so you don't get caught in it. And it is a way to, like I said, plant a seed in someone's mind of guilt and shame. And the person doing this hides the seed in other words of encouragement, positivity, compliments. And I got an email that probably a few months ago. I get a lot of emails. By the way, if you sent me an email, I probably have read it. I just get a lot of them. I can't really reply to them, but I do eventually address the topics that I receive on the air. So, if you're sending emails and you're wondering, why isn't he reading? Why isn't he replying? It's because I just get so many and I just can't reply to them. So I will address the topic on the air eventually. So keep listening. But the email that I received regarding this started off with any thoughts or suggestions for someone like myself who is married to a therapist and is great with their words. They're convincing, and they also make me feel like I can never measure up. He isn't saying I can never measure up, but in reality, that's how I feel. He'll tell me that I am 99% a great wife, but the 1% I lack is in the emotional needs that I can't fill for him. And so, any one of us could say, you know what, I love everything about you, but this one thing. And so, even though 99% of something is great, that 1% stands out. And that 1%, whatever that is, the but, your great but, is the seed I'm talking about. Now, this isn't like every but is a seed of guilt and shame. It is the seed of guilt and shame usually found when someone's trying to manipulate the person. And the manipulation is if you feel guilty or ashamed, then you will likely do your best to earn that person's love and worth. You'll try harder to earn that person's love and worth. You want them to see you as important and valuable. And this is extremely unhealthy behavior. In any type of relationship that is supposed to involve love, if somebody tells you, you know what, almost all of you is fantastic. However, this one thing is not, and you need to work on it, or I don't like it. It makes me cringe, or whatever they say. In this case, this woman's married to a therapist, and she cannot communicate with him because it's very difficult to communicate with someone who can run circles around your words because they know what to say. They know how to say it in a way that it puts you on the defense, and they might use lingo. They might use diagnoses. They might say things that you don't understand, and they must be right because they present this air of intelligence and authority. And when you're with someone like that, and they don't seem to mind making you feel bad about yourself, then it's a very difficult situation to be in because there's no way out. There's no way out of that conversation without getting emotionally wounded. And unfortunately, they know they're wounding you. At least most people that do this that I'm talking about, this thing I'm talking about, they know they're emotionally wounding you because they also know that when you're wounded, you're more likely to try to earn their love and attention and respect by doing everything you can to get it. So what they're getting from this planting of a seed of guilt and shame about the 1% that's not so great about you is more love, more attention, more submission, more conformity to the criteria that they are trying to make you follow. They're trying to line you up so that you meet their standards. And this is a manipulation, and it is a game. The people who are doing this may not know it's a game. That's just how they're trying to get their needs met. But some of them, a lot of them know that they're doing this. When I was younger, I knew that by doing this, it would keep her in a weak, vulnerable state. Again, that sounds so awful when I say it that way, but that's what I did. I recognize that behavior now. I do not do that anymore. If it starts to come out, I catch myself and think, whoa, what am I doing here? I ask myself, what am I doing here? I don't want to do that. I don't want to make her feel bad. That's not my goal. So we're all capable of doing something like this. And, what is this? What is this thing I'm talking about? Well, here's the thing. When someone compliments you, gives you praise, or tells you you're everything but, you're going to remember the but. You're going to remember the negative comment. I mean, that's normal. Whenever 100 people say they love you and that you're great and that you're smart and that you're just so amazing, the one person that says, oh my God, you're ugly and dumb and I really hate you, that's going to stand out. That's the but. That's everything is great except this one thing. And what happens is when you have a loved one that does this thing, that compliments you, that says, oh my God, you're the greatest except this one thing, that but will stand out. And likely the reason they said this exception was to make you ruminate on it, continually think about it, so that it puts you in that space of, I'm not good enough. If you're in that space of, I'm not good enough, what is your natural response? Your natural response is that you want to feel good enough. Your natural response, typically, most people will want to feel like someone loves them, like they're worthy to the people that are in their life, to the people that they love. They want to feel connected. They want to feel like they are still part of someone's life and that they're valued. So if you don't feel good enough, if you don't feel worthy, you're going to spend so much time trying to make up for that and do extra things for the person and increase your effort, increase your energy until you get worn out trying to satisfy them, trying to show them that, hey, you're trying everything you can to be worthy. And this is a trap. I don't want you to fall in this trap that you're not worthy enough, because when you're in that state of not feeling worthy enough and someone takes advantage of that, then you stay in that state because they realize how much it benefits them. It benefits manipulative, emotionally abusive people if you stay in a state of not worthy enough, or not good enough, or not feeling lovable, or being accused, or feeling ashamed or guilty. When someone you love says things that put you in that state, you want to get out of that state. And usually the default behavior, the default response is to try to do things, try to do so many good things for the other person to show them that you are not that. I am not the person you think I am. In fact, let me prove it to you. Here, I'm going to do all these things to show you that I'm better than that. And at least if I can't, you'll see that I'm trying. And then in a really emotionally abusive relationship, you'll spend your entire relationship trying. You're trying to please them. You're trying to satisfy them. You're trying everything you can to get out of that lower state, that lower place of low self-esteem, low self-worth, not feeling lovable, not feeling important, not feeling connected, because you find it hard to connect with someone until they finally say, oh my God, you're the greatest. You don't have to change a thing. But that's an endless pursuit. That's an endless pursuit, because why would someone who plants the seed of guilt or shame in the first place ever want you to feel fully satisfied with yourself? There's no reason for them to want you to feel that way, because once you're fully satisfied with yourself, then they believe you'll have nothing to improve upon and nothing to prove to them, which takes away all that extra effort and all that extra attention that you put on them. And that doesn't satisfy the selfishness that they're in anymore. Because that's what's happening. As soon as you put in all this extra time and attention and energy, you are satisfying a selfish need that they know makes you feel bad about yourself. And my definition for emotional abuse is when someone else makes you feel bad about yourself. And if you're in that state of constantly feeling bad about yourself, you are in an abusive place. And that is very unhealthy, because it keeps you there. I mean, as long as you continue to believe that you're not worthy enough, that you're not lovable, that you aren't smart enough, that you aren't good enough for the other person, or pretty enough, or handsome enough, whatever it is for you, as long as you're in that space, you're going to try too hard to make up for it. Which is why it's important to not be in that space. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the myth that you are anything but amazing, because everything else is untrue. Because you need to know how worthy you are. If you know how worthy and lovable and amazing you are, you won't get into the trap of trying to fulfill a selfish need. So it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on here, as long as you understand that you already are worthy, lovable, and amazing. You won't have to waste any time trying to prove it to anyone. All you have to do is heal inside. I know that's a tall order, but that's where you need to focus. Heal inside so that you know you're worthy. I mean, this is something that I went through in my youth, in my 20s and 30s. I felt insecure. I felt fear. I never thought I was worthy enough. I was always afraid that the person I was with was going to leave me because I didn't have a good enough body. I didn't have the intelligence. I didn't have the masculinity that I thought I needed. I didn't have a bunch of stuff that I really believed that I thought I should have. And I was always comparing myself to, quote, better people. Oh, she's going to leave me for him. Or why wouldn't she leave me for him? He's much better looking. He's wealthy. He's stronger. Whatever it is, I just carried around these fears and insecurities. So that kept me trying harder and harder to satisfy the women in my life, please them, and go over the top, because I felt so insecure inside. And it kept me in a continuous burnout state. I was continually burned out. I was always emotionally drained because I spent so much time doing that instead of focusing on myself and realizing I am worthy. And it took a while. It took a lot of self-development. It took a lot of understanding myself, being with myself, and even inflating my ego in a healthy way. Meaning, and this is something I practice whenever I need it, I just tell myself, hey, I'm a great catch. I'm a great catch. There's no doubt about it. I am a great catch. And when I say that to myself, it sounds egotistical, but if I'm in a low space, it helps raise my ego. It helps raise my sense of self, my security inside myself, my feelings of worth, my feelings of love. It raises everything inside of me, my compassion for myself. It raises it to the point where I'm not seeking it outside myself. This is why it's sometimes okay to access that ego and tell yourself, hey, I'm pretty darn great. I am great. It sounds like an affirmation. And if it works as an affirmation for you, great. If it doesn't, you just have to access that ego and speak the words, I'm a great catch. I'm lovable. I'm definitely worthy. And it's their loss if they don't see that. It's just a matter of telling yourself this, allowing yourself to absorb it, and even if you have to artificially inflate that ego by saying these things, it's worth it because I would rather have you in a slightly elevated ego state than a highly decreased self-love and self-worth state. It's much better to be slightly narcissistic in a healthy way, not narcissism that we talk about on the show normally. I'm talking about slightly narcissistic so that you love yourself. And that sounds new agey, but I really want you to love yourself to the point where you don't have to seek your worth or your value outside yourself. Because when you get to that point, then you can have a healthy relationship. Then when someone says, you're great, but there's one thing about you I don't like, and now you feel like, oh, what does that mean? Now I'm stuck on this but, and I can't get it out of my head. You can remind yourself, oh, wait, I'm great. And if they don't like it, that's their loss. I know it's tough to get to that point, especially if you are way down, if you've been emotionally beaten over and over again. I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult to get there, but it's in you. It really is. You just have to access it, and you just have to tell yourself that you are worthy. You are lovable. Say it with me. I am worthy. I am lovable. I am the greatest. Why not? Why not say something so inflated that it sounds ridiculous that you might laugh? It doesn't sound ridiculous to me, but it might sound ridiculous to someone out there. If I said, hey, say you're the greatest, you might think, what? I'm not going to say that. I'm not the greatest. So what? It's in your head. Say it anyway. I'm the greatest. I think that's a great place to be and feel. All it is increasing how you feel about yourself inside. Because I guarantee you, if you're in a lower state of self-worth and self-love, that adding a little bit of narcissistic commentary to your internal dialogue is not going to bring you into full-blown narcissism. It's impossible, because narcissists don't really feel in that same way. I mean, yes, they also suffer from low self-worth and low self-esteem, but they don't really have compassion or empathy. The full-blown narcissists typically don't have any of that stuff. But the person who's always trying harder to be a better person, that's not someone who's narcissist. That's someone who could benefit from a little bit of narcissism, a little bit of ego inflation, so that you can balance yourself out. You got to balance yourself out. You can't stay in this low state all the time, because when you're in that low state, you can't function normally. You're always trying to make up. You're always trying to make a greater effort than you need, because you're trying to either impress someone else or show someone else that you are better than what they think you are. So let me wrap this up with my main point, which is this. There are people out there that know how to plant that seed of guilt and shame, and they hide it in kind words. And when you're aware that it's happening, I want you to remember a couple things that you can say. And this should be something more along the lines of your response, instead of maybe a usual response of feeling bad about yourself. And before I tell you a good way to respond, let me share with you a real world example of this. When I was in my 20s, or it might have been early 30s, my girlfriend got a tattoo, and I didn't like it. I didn't want her to have tattoos, but she got this tattoo, and I didn't like her having ink on her skin, yet I loved her. So what I said was, I don't like the tattoo, but I love you and I support you having it. That's what I said. And, somebody might hear that and go, well, that sounds very supportive. That sounds like you're honoring yourself. You're being honest about what you like and you don't like. And you're making her feel good that you're still there for her, even though you may disagree with it. It does sound like that. Maybe not to everyone listening, but it does sound very supportive. And so now I look at a statement like that, and I can see how that was purposefully crafted. Those words were purposely crafted to make her feel bad about something that she wasn't going to be able to remove. Something that she was now going to live with for the rest of her life. I mean, you can get laser removal, but she wanted this, and now it's a permanent thing that's going to be with her forever until she dies. And so I look back at those words that I used. I don't like that, but I love you and I support you getting that. On the outside, it's painted as a very positive, supportive, loving thing to say. And I painted it that way on purpose at the time. However, when I think about the intention for me saying it that way, because I didn't have to say anything. I could have just said, "Oh, honey, that looks amazing," and not say any buts. If I had chosen to say that, our relationship would have been different. I would have been a different person, that's for sure. But instead, I made sure to include that but. So I made myself look great and supportive and loving, and I also planted the seed of guilt and shame so that she would feel a little bit bad, or a lot bad, about what she did, putting her more in the space of not necessarily happy, but more reserved, as if I believed that in order for us to have a greater connection and a greater bond, she was now going to have to work harder at showing her love for me. That is such a sneaky, toxic manipulation. And I only now realize that I did it. I mean, today, I just realized I did this like 20 or so years ago. That's who I was. I was able to pull something like that out of my hat without thinking. I didn't necessarily know I was being manipulative. All I knew is that it made sense for me to say that so that she would carry around that seed of guilt and shame, so that she would continue to try to make me happy, or make me happier than I was. It was like I kept the people in my relationships just far enough away so that they were always struggling to get closer. I wanted to be close to them, but I kept them in an emotional space so that they always tried harder than they should have tried. And that was how I got my emotional needs fulfilled. Very, very toxic, very manipulative, very unhealthy. And I'm sharing this with you so that you can start to recognize that some people will do this to you. Some people will praise you, and give you that but, and there's a purpose behind that but. There's a purpose behind the exception that they put in front of you. I'm not saying everyone has a goal of making you feel guilty, but my question is, why is the exception necessary? Like, if I could go back in time and watch this exchange between my girlfriend and I when I was younger, when my girlfriend left the room, and I would ask my younger self, why did you feel it necessary to point out that you didn't like her tattoo? Why? Why did you find it necessary? And I might have said, well, I wanted her to know that I didn't like it, but I wanted to be honest, and I didn't want to come across as faking it. And then I would ask myself, yeah, but do you think that you telling her that you don't like it makes her feel good about herself? And I would have to think about that. As a younger guy, I would say, well, I don't think she'll feel very good about it. I mean, now it's on her skin forever and she can't really do anything about it. And then I would ask, well, what was your goal then of saying it that way? And I would probably come up with the answer. I would probably say, well, I guess I wanted her to feel a little bit bad for doing something that I didn't want her to do. And then my younger self would get it. I don't know if I would have been able to heal and not do that anymore, but I would at least get what I was doing, and hopefully I would be empathetic enough to stop doing it. But this is something that's important to know for today, for your conversations with people in your life. It is to maybe ask the question in your mind or to them, why did you feel the need to point that out? That's a good question. And they may have a, quote, perfectly reasonable, rational explanation. And maybe they'll say something stupid like, well, I thought you should know. And maybe they'll say something that makes you feel even worse, or that doesn't make any sense, or it seems like it makes sense, but you still feel bad. They're very good at doing that if they're intentionally doing this. And so let's talk about how you can respond. I kind of hinted at that earlier. How you can respond when someone brings up this exception and plants that seed of guilt and shame. You can respond this way. When you say that to me, it makes me feel awful, like I'm not good enough for you. Say that and wait for their response. See what they say. They'll probably say, well, I don't want you to feel bad. I just wanted to say it because X, Y, Z. And then you might have to repeat it. Yeah, but when you say that to me, it makes me feel awful. I feel like I'm not good enough for you. So they may say, well, you're fantastic. I love you in every way, but you just don't show up in certain ways that make me love you as much as I can or I want to. Whatever they say. Or in my case, I love you in every way. I just don't like that ink on your body. That might have been something I said back then. But again, that's the same statement as the original. It still has the exception. It still has the but. That's a very manipulative response from them. So your next response could be something along the lines of, do you know that when you say that, it puts me in a continuous state of low self-worth and low self-esteem? In fact, I feel like I can't even depend on you to be my emotional supporter because you'll always remind me that I'll never quite live up to your standards. And instead of wanting me to feel happy and motivated to see you, you say things that make me feel bad about myself. Now, I know that's a lot, but you can replay this, you can write it down, you can think about it. And I'm not saying you have to say these exact words. I'm trying to give you the bigger picture of these words. I'm trying to put you in a place of power, because your power is not to go into a defensive place. Your power is to realize your worth and show them that they're trying to put you in a state of low self-worth or feeling bad about yourself or feeling inferior, feeling small. What you're doing is pointing out what they're doing to you. Because when you point out what somebody else is doing to you, that gives them the option, that gives them the choice to continue doing it or stop. If they have the choice to stop and they don't stop, knowing that it hurts you, knowing that you feel bad when they do it, then you really have to question the relationship at that point. Because someone who knows they're doing something and continues to do it to you, even though you told them it hurts me when you do this, that is a dangerous situation for you. That is emotionally damaging for you. And it is unhealthy for them too. They should not be doing this to someone else, and they should not have someone else to do it to. I'm not going to tell you that you need to get out of that kind of relationship or get away from that person. That's totally up to you. But you need to stay in your power. You don't need to jump into a defensive place. You don't need to defend yourself. If someone makes fun of your hair color and you don't want to dye your hair to change the color, and you realize that, well, there's nothing I can do about it, that's too bad. That's a much more powerful place than saying, oh, I'm sorry I don't like it. I'll do whatever I can. I'll dye it. I'll cut it off. I'll do whatever it takes. You don't want to be in that powerless, defensive, submissive, small, inferior space. You want to grab a hold of your power and stay in that stronger place of knowing you're all that, knowing you're great. You're the greatest. And in fact, when you feel that at all inside, even if you're just working on this and trying to feel that inside, just saying something back to them like I sort of intimated already, now that you know it makes me feel bad when you point out my flaws or tell me that I'm almost good enough, will you stop saying things like that? Again, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you find out what they're going to do next. Because if you ask that question, will you please stop saying things that make me feel bad? And they don't, now you know what you'll deal with for the rest of the time that you stick around. And that's important for you to know, because there will be a point where you either accept that that's who they'll always be and you'll stop trying so hard, or you'll make changes for yourself. Or, you'll seek therapy, or a best case scenario, the other person gets it and they say, wow, I didn't know I was hurting you. I definitely don't want you to feel that way because I love you. That would be the best, healthiest answer possible. I didn't realize I was hurting you. I love you. I never want you to feel that way. I'm going to work on that behavior right now. I'm going to stop that behavior right now. If you can get that out of them and they're sincere, you have a chance. There's a chance to fix all of this. But if you get anything else or nothing remotely close to that, the chances of healing or mending or bonding or fixing any of this between that person and you is very, very slim. I hope that's not bad news for you. I just want you to have a reality that you can count on so that you can make choices even if they're hard to make. Again, the primary goal is to point out what they're doing to you instead of getting on the defensive and trying to take the blame or take responsibility that you have to change in order for them to be happy. You want to stay out of that place. And just remember, when someone puts you down in any way, tell them this. That says more about you than it does about me, because why would you want to hang out with someone who is that awful to be with? I think it's a great line to remember. If I'm that awful, why do you hang around? If I'm not good enough, why wouldn't you want to find someone that was good enough? If you can't stop focusing on my flaws, that says a lot more about you than it does about me. Just remember that, because you are worthy, you are amazing, and when you absorb that, no one can take your power away. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook. The workbook is an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. If you want to pinpoint the exact behaviors causing the difficulties in your relationship, including identifying all the signs of possible emotional abuse, head over to loveandabuse.com. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant, because you are. Thank you for joining me today. We'll talk again soon.